But where do you see the ultimate culpability and responsibility? Because I am with you, and I think that explanation is on point with the gender identity. And I know Jewel's story, and I think that she did, from an early age, right, Jewel, see that she viewed herself as someone who should be blind. And I understand and am respectful of that psychopathology or that psychological state. But where do you go, Dr. Phil, from that state to the act, and who is ultimately responsible? I can't get my brain around the act of intentionally doing something like that.
And by the way, we reached out to this psychologist, as Jewel knows, and asked him, what the hell are you thinking? And he said, and I quote, "I do not know who that is," in reference to asking if he knew Jewel. I did nothing of the sort in reference to helping her with taking her sight. I have no idea why she mentioned me. And Jewel is very specific in saying he absolutely did, correct?
That's correct. He absolutely did help me.
So, who's at fault here? First off, she was victimized by a poor guidance. So she did not go through the proper process. She did not have the amount of time she needed to properly vet this in her own mind, rule out other causes for feeling this way. So she's both victim and perpetrator here.
The one thing I wanted to make very clear in having Jewel and you on our show today is that this is an extremely, extremely rare diagnosis. And my concern with this diagnosis is the power of suggestion. That there are these message boards encouraging people in many ways, showing them how to harm themselves. And my fear is that people who are going through a tough spot in life are gonna grasp onto this diagnosis and harm themselves and then later regret it.
Well, I always am concerned, and we have to be very careful how we talk about these things on the air, because I don't want people copycatting this, because this is a serious decision. It's irreversible. You cannot go back from this. And there are other ways to distinguish yourself. You do not want to mimic this behavior. And this is not something that you, if in fact you were someone that was going to be diagnosed BIID, this would have been something that would have been in your consciousness from your first remembrance, which would have been 3, 4, 5 years old. This is not something that you embraced in your teens, even if you agree with the disorder. And this is not a recognized disorder in the DSM schema at this point. It is being proffered as for consideration in the next series.
And I don't know one doctor who would ever. We take the Hippocratic Oath, which is, the modern translation is, "I will do no harm." And I cannot imagine one physician who would willingly get to a point where they blind them intentionally. And that's, to me, what makes this diagnosis so very difficult. Thank goodness that the thought is that this is very rare.
To me, I am hearing two different arguments, almost like talking out of both sides of the mouth, figuratively, which is, it's a disorder, I'm not in control of it, but I am in control because I picked the wrong person to help me. Or maybe it's his fault because he didn't do it the right way. And that is, I think, the two juxtaposed arguments that don't make sense to me. Either you're going to take responsibility for it and say, this is who I am, if you want to make the good analogy to gender reassignment, or you're going to say, I wasn't treated properly by the psychiatric and medical community, which may be the case, and maybe we do need to learn more about this disorder, but it's not both. It's, you made a decision, you're not a child, you've been living with this for a long time, and I hope with every fiber of my being, Jewel, that you have inner peace and happiness, not just today, but with the reaction to this story and for the rest of your life. But conceptually, it's one or the other. You have to take ownership for it, or you're the victim.